Hey everybody, we're back with another Bald Move TV. This time we're doing things a little different. It's a fusion style. It's Bald Movies, Bald Move TV, worlds colliding. Because this week, some intrepid person on the internet shaved down 60 hours worth of Breaking Bad into just over a 2-hour movie. And I saw it, obviously a huge Breaking Bad fan, how Bald Move kind of made its bones in the Villa Ghoul universe. And I've got some co-hosts joining me, Eric Wahlquist from Seattle, Shayne Bowman from Atlanta. Shayne, you've been on our podcast quite a bit. You are the proprietor of the Heisenberg Chronicles, which
That's
is
right, HeisenbergChronicles.com.
The world's foremost site for all things Villigan, right? Anything about Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul is going to break on your site.
Correct. It's going to be on there. Every day I post probably 10 to 15 different things about that universe every single day.
Fan art, news articles, podcast, it's all fair game.
Yep.
And Eric, you have been a Bald Move host for a long, long time. I'm sure people know you from Personal Arrogance and then Direct and Gotham and various other projects you've done. What is your relationship to the Vince Gilligan's Breaking Bad universe?
Well, I would say that Breaking Bad is the best show that's ever been made.
All right.
I love Breaking Bad a ton, and I actually didn't even watch it when you guys started your Breaking Bad coverage. I caught up to it in like season 4, which gave me the luxury of watching seasons 1 through 3 on Netflix and binging them, which I feel like is an excellent way to watch this series.
Indeed.
But yeah, I just love the show. And on the same note, I think that Better Call Saul is probably the best show on television right now as well. So I'm a big Villigan fan.
So if you want to watch this movie, it's a little tricky because, as you would imagine, Sony was probably, I don't know if they were happy or not, but they are almost obligated in a fiduciary sense to try to pull this thing off of the internet. And they've largely succeeded from scrubbing it. You'd have to go to the Bay of Pirates or the reactor of torrents, something along those lines to get it nowadays. The Breaking Bad movie is what it's called. But
they have a website.
They do. What is the website?
It's called bbthemovie.com.
So go ahead.
You can learn a little bit about it's two guys in France. They're both actual directors. And there's a really great article on vanityfair.com. They were the only ones who actually got a kind of over the email interview with these guys, Gaylor Morriston and Lucas Stoll.
Oh wow, they're using the real names in there, so they're not really afraid of
real names, and
they're not afraid of prosecution apparently.
Yeah, no, I mean, and they did a link here and go buy the box set and all that nonsense, but yeah, they've kind of come out of the hiding because when they first released it on Vimeo, they really hid their identity.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, yeah, I think it's interesting. Because I didn't feel any guilt about pirating this particular movie. I've got like 9 different legal means to watch the Breaking, but like I've got the set. They got the set. It's on Netflix. It's on Amazon. I mean, like I've got the legal right to watch it 6 ways from Sunday. So a subset of it I didn't have a problem with. Have you heard any official reaction? Like, has Vince Gilligan or Peter Gould said anything, Shayne, about their reaction to seeing this?
I haven't heard anybody through the show channels, but I also know that they're hard at work on finishing Better Call Saul, so they probably don't give one rat's ass about this.
Yeah,
it's probably something they'll watch in maybe a month or 2 when they're done with Better Call Saul.
Because I thought it was interesting that Vince Gilligan, he just did a Reddit AMA yesterday, and I was kind of surprised that that wasn't asked and answered, like if you're aware of it and all that, and but anyway,
I feel like Vince would be totally fine with this.
I think so too.
Just he seems to really love the community that's grown up around Breaking Bad, and
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think that he would be like I don't think he could maybe publicly endorse something like this due to
Oh,
legal
right.
reasons and whatnot,
Right.
but I don't think he, you know, from what his public persona is, he doesn't project that he would not like something like this. I think he'd eat it up actually.
Right.
Well, you know who's most likely from the show to watch this is Peter Gould, right? He was prior to the show a professor at film school, and he's kind of the known student of film in their group. So I could see Peter Gould being the first one to, give it a blessing to other people on the team to watch it or not.
So let's talk, I guess, specifics. I want to go around real quick and get everyone's reaction to like what they thought as far as the merits of the project, and maybe start with Eric. What did you,
Sure.
after seeing Breaking Bad, seeing this movie? What was your reaction to it? Do you think it stands on its own? Do you think that a person not new to Breaking Bad, and by the way, this spoilers for everything Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. It's going to be hard not to spoil the entire, and if you haven't seen it by now, what the hell's wrong with you? Don't see this movie. Go watch all 5 seasons and 2 seasons of Better Call Saul, then watch the movie, and you can join the discussion. But how did you think it held together, or judge its kind of worthiness briefly as a project?
Yeah, well, as you know, A.Ron, I am a big movie aficionado. I am the host of the Direct podcast.
Yep.
So my word goes very far in these parts. What I would say is that I don't think that it holds up as a movie at all.
Yeah.
I feel like if you were brand new to Breaking Bad and you watch this, you might walk away saying, "What's all the hype about?"
Or
Correct.
like, what the hell's going on?
What the hell's going on? Yeah, they leave out so much of the show, and so but at the same time, so while I don't think it holds together as a movie on its own, I got a huge kick out of watching it. Being a huge Breaking Bad fan, it was just an awesome way to go back and see all those performances. See Bryan Cranston as Walter White again was really good. See his name's Dean Norris, right?
Yep.
As Walt's brother-in-law. Like, just see those performances once again. I thought it was just really, really great fan service. But ultimately, as a movie, does not hold up on its own.
Shayne, what's your opinion?
Totally agree. I mean, I tried to keep an open mind, just like when I watched Metastasis or Metastasis or whatever you want to call the
Right.
Univision Colombian version of Breaking Bad,
Yep.
right? I tried to keep an open mind while I was watching this, but really, the way this is edited, this is basically Walt's journey, right?
Right.
And Vince 100 times over said, this is the story of Mr. Chips, a guy changing from Mr. Chips to Scarface, that transformation. And to me, the success of this project rides or dies on their ability to communicate that transformation. And I don't really think that transformation story holds as a through line here in this movie, and that's its core problem. Because it really doesn't matter whether Skinny Pete is in the movie or the Salamanca cousins are there,
Right.
or Face Off is there, or any of those things that they
Right.
cut out, and they cut out a huge amount. But if Walt's story holds together, then this could be successful. And frankly, it doesn't hold together. I mean, there's absolutely no nuance, no flavor, no nothing around the transformation. It's just sort of jumps in time.
Yeah.
And so there's no authenticity to the transformation. So thus you don't feel the ascendance and you don't feel the authenticity of his fall. And to me, this project rides or dies on that.
Yeah. I agree. I feel like this is very analogous to David Lynch's Dune, in that if you are familiar with the source material, it's kind of righteous. But if you're not, you're left bewildered and confused, and characters are orphaned and they pop up and then they submarine and they come back later, and it's very hard to see where it's all going. But I also agree with Eric, because I have not rewatched season 4 and 5 since we covered it. And
Wow.
in particular, seeing how great Dean Norris was in some of those moments, like the speech he gave about hunting monsters, the speech where he confronts Walt, his reaction, him and Betsy Brandt's reaction to watching the blackmail DVD. Like it's not that I forgot the moments, but I guess I forgot how good he was, because you always remember. You always remember Aaron Paul. You always remember Bryan Cranston and Giancarlo Esposito as Gus. But that, like, particular Dean Norris, I thought he came off really good. And I guess I was really confused because I was kind of excited when I saw that they were going to dispense with Crazy 8 and Tuco. They're like, oh, wow, they're going to, like, concentrate and tell a really tight story about, the duel between, Gus and Walt. But they didn't really. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe they're going to make this all about, like, Hank and Walt. But they also didn't really sell that. It did feel like a greatest hits or a clips episode more than it did a true standalone movie.
Yeah, but so I get it, and don't get me wrong, I haven't seen Breaking Bad in this calendar year, and I've watched this show in its entirety every year since it came out. So it did make me succeed in making me want to watch it all over again.
Sure.
And if that's what comes out of you watching this, then that's fantastic. But it doesn't even serve up a greatest hits, dude. There is no "I am the danger" speech.
Sure.
There is
stay out of my territory.
Right. I mean, there's almost all of Walt's classic moments don't exist here either.
Victor's throat slit. I thought that they would sell that as the but it's like Gus's danger was very theoretical in this whole proceeding. So let's talk, and let's take turns before we go on the parts where they might have missed. I want to talk about the things we thought that we thought that did work, because I don't think again it hangs together, but I think there's like 3 or 4 parts that kind of do, and I was thinking, like, seeing, like, if we could go around and talk about the parts that actually worked. Shayne, do you want to start us off?
Sure. So I kind of made a note to myself of how they were breaking down this 2-hour movie. Like, how is the show cut up into this 2 hours? Basically, season 1 through Vamonos Pest, which is like 503, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is the first hour
mm-hmm.
of the film. So they took 4 seasons and compressed that into the first hour.
Right.
The second hour, the first 10 minutes, is first half of season 5.
Uh-huh.
So the last 45 minutes, which in my opinion is the most successful part of this, is only 8 episodes.
Right.
So they took 8 episodes and condensed that story into 45 minutes. And that, to me, is the part that works the best.
Yeah.
So that you get to feel the Dean Norris, Bryan Cranston confrontation in the garage, and you get confession, and you get all those great beats out of 5B, and then and those are fantastic. And then you get slapped in the face because Uncle Jack and Todd show up out of nowhere.
Right.
But those are still classic moments out of 5B, and that's what worked the best for me. What about you, Eric?
Well, I would actually kind of say the opposite of that. What worked best for me in this whole movie was the beginning. Up to the first cook in the Winnebago, I felt like the whole beginning of it was actually really good. I liked seeing him in the classroom. I liked the cancer diagnosis. I like how they kind of handled all of that. Once it goes into that, because they turned it into this weird montage when they started cooking, and then that was when it started getting really disjointed for me. I will say I thought it was really interesting because, the moment when Hank's sitting on the toilet and he reads the Walt Whitman book, and he connects the dots on who Heisenberg is. That moment, I paused it during that moment, and it was like halfway through the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So it really is. I mean, they definitely made this movie about Hank versus Walter. And I guess the thing that's most successful for me in this is that throughout Breaking Bad, I was always I always fell into that Walt apologist camp,
Right.
which I know that A.Ron, you made the flip at some point and you saw Walt as the villain.
Mm-hmm.
I was always rooting for Walt.
A lot of people did.
Yeah, and the thing that this movie does effectively is that it took that away. It really does paint Walt as the villain and as kind of an irredeemable monster. And not to say that he isn't an irredeemable monster, but by the time I finished watching the movie, I had a much different view of Walt than I did watching the series, because you don't see the nuances so much in the movie. You don't see his interactions with his son as much. You don't see, there's just a lot of it that's left out, and they just kind of leave the worst Walt parts in there. Although, they leave out poisoning the child, a lot of things that Walt does. But yeah, I think effectively, I really liked the beginning, and then I thought that it was surprising to me that my perception of Walt did change after watching this 2-hour film.
Interesting, because you're right, because I would consider this almost a sanitized Walt apologist take on this, because they do a lot of his greatest atrocities: the prison massacre, poisoning a child, stealing kidnapping his child, like all those things were put out. But they did sell that final knife fight with Skyler and that scene of Walt Jr. hovering protectively over his mother and how just scared everybody was. Like, I thought that was pretty good. I want to talk about the movification real quick. I really liked the credit sequence. I thought that felt like it gave it a big, like I got really excited when they, and it's cutting and everybody's kind of like recognizable uniforms over their names. And is it just me, or did they do some kind of filter that made it look slightly more cinematic? Like did they? It's like almost like they added a little grain, or maybe washed out the color to give it a little bit like of a Fincher vibe. Is that possible, or am I just crazy?
I think that they kind of took what the original Breaking Bad opening title sequence was, which is a really cool abstract sequence. And then they just kind of grindhoused it a little bit. I think they made it a little more grindhousey. I like the intro as well. I wasn't a huge fan of the font that they used. And then the main thing that kind of rubbed me the wrong way was that the font wasn't distressed like the backgrounds were,
right?
Which made the font really stand out and look like it was just kind of plastered on there. But but it's a couple dudes in France, and that this is their creative output in this. Everything else is just cut and paste, right? So I was okay with that opening title sequence, but it wasn't like I wasn't over the moon about it.
The thing, on Heisenberg Chronicles, one of the kind of core drivers of new Breaking Bad content showing up on the internet is student school projects. And I cannot tell you how many. I probably have a couple hundred on the Chronicles, different versions or takes on the opening credit sequence. And this one, actually, I thought was pretty successful. The typography was bad. It wasn't right. But as a kind of tone setting thing, and it is my favorite version of Dave Porter's Heisenberg theme that's playing underneath it all. I love that part of it. I thought that was really, really nice.
Especially since the costuming was such a big part of the feel, that I felt like reducing the characters down to that felt very appropriate.
It's very clever.
I also, the thing, so if I want to talk about just plot points, what I was impressed is I thought they captured very well the rise, fall, and redemption of Skyler. Like, I thought that they hit all of those beats, the betrayal of him refusing to get the cancer, the gradual dawning of her husband being a drug lord, the then, resigned complicity of laundering the money, then the broken promise of being out and the real danger to the family, and then she ultimately picks up the knife, and they had also the beat from Felina where she gives her 5 minutes. I actually was extremely impressed. Like, she probably got 10 minutes total of this movie, but I thought they hit all of those character beats and told kind of in a very compressed form the entire story of Skylar. And I thought that she might have been the character that came away with the most of her character beats and integrity intact.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Skylar, I was also in the camp that I was not a big fan of Skylar, which I know is a popular opinion,
sure,
amongst Breaking Bad fans. But I think that was really part of the reason why I walked away with this with such a negative view of Walt, is that I really empathize with Skylar in this version. That final scene, it's one of my favorite scenes in the entire series, and I feel like it's a climactic arc for Walt's character when he walks in to that project housing that Skylar is now living in,
right?
And that moment when he says, "I did it for me," like that moment is like a very cathartic moment for Walt's character. And God, I felt so fucking bad for Skylar.
Yeah.
In that scenario, I was just like, you had it all, like, you had the nice house with the swimming pool and everything.
No,
and,
he burned that family down.
He did. He burned him to the fucking ground. And so I really did. I empathized with Skylar in this version in a way that I didn't. So maybe it was just the lack of screen time, or maybe it was the stuff they left on the cutting room floor, or I don't know what. But I felt a level of sympathy or empathy for Skylar at the end that I did not feel when the series ended.
Any other parts, Shane, you want to talk about that work particularly well?
No, I second your point about Skylar, because I too also think this was probably the most successful part of this effort completely, was because she's the only secondary character that actually has any nuance to her.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can kind of get the complete arc of her story throughout Breaking Bad. And, maybe it's more successful here because there's less of the needling of Walt and the pulling of Walt back down to the grounded reality that he did not want to accept.
Right.
That's what people so often complained about with Skylar. And I was a Skylar apologist throughout the run of Breaking Bad.
Sure.
I empathized with her greatly because she basically was married to an infant. And she's like, hey, you've got me and your son and your daughter and these responsibilities, and why don't you man up and do the right thing? And his idea of manning up and doing the right thing, of course, was something entirely different. And it's probably the one thing I actually appreciated most about this movie.
I do think 90% of people's problem with Skylar comes from the first season, and then
yes,
the IFT, which I thought was pretty justified, but skipping all that does make her seem a lot more understandable. How about you, Eric? Any other? Because I've got a couple other things I thought were positive. So if you guys have run out, let me know.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of positives, like I said, it's just really watchable for a Breaking Bad fan. And there's a lot of awesome TV out there. And as much as I'd like to go back and watch the entire series of Breaking Bad, it's hard to justify with the amount of good television that I haven't yet seen.
Right.
So,
and that's the thing. People are always surprised, like when they find out that I haven't watched season 4 or 5 since it aired, and I'm like, I watched those episodes 3, sometimes 4, maybe once or twice, 5 times, and spent hours talking about it. So it's like, they're still kind of like burned into my retinas to somewhat. And I do think it's like I'm just now getting around to rewatching The Wire in high def. Like Breaking Bad's time will come. And I'm feeling Shane here. Like this movie did give me an appetite to go back, if nothing else, watch seasons, because I just did season 1 through 3 last year on a podcast, maybe the year before. But definitely 4 and 5. Because man, there's some incredible moments. The other thing I thought worked really well is how they blended the first cooking montage with a montage of him stealing supplies from the high school and undergoing cancer treatment. I thought that was a great way to almost tell the story of season 1, minus Crazy 8, minus Tuco. But it told you everything you need to know about season 1, and I thought that worked really well. And that led me to my other point, which is I was very, very glad that they had 3 solid cooking montages, because that's one of the things I think Breaking Bad is. When I think about it, like if it's the performances first, the second are just like these almost joyful how stuff is made, set to awesome pop culture music, montages of Walt doing the thing he loves, the chemistry. And I'm glad that they, like, if they hadn't got 3 of those in there, I would have felt like they just missed the soul of the show.
Yeah, but I do appreciate that first one. It's basically the 4 Days Out montage plus, right? And it's an excellent example of time compression. But the thing I don't like about them is that it's time compression and cooking montage. So the two objectives are fighting each other for me in these montages. You can't have both. And the first one I thought was the more successful of them, but the Vamonos Pest one and the later one with Gail, right? That's the other montage.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, those are more purely cooking montages.
Right.
But, I mean, that is the heart, one of the, signatures of the show. So at least they had those, to your point. But there's so many other signatures of this show that are missing that, like, can we branch into that? Is now the time to talk about the things
I've shot my positive wad. It's time to get the long knives out, because I do feel like they wasted time in some instances.
Yes.
And I couldn't figure out. So let's talk about where do they really miss in the adaptation, and also keep in mind that you can't blow this out more than 2 hours or you're not respecting the spirit of the film. So like when you talk about things they miss, like what, like maybe suggest cuts that would have made, it's thing we're trying to balance the budget here, right? If you suggest something that needs to come in, what needs to come out?
Can I jump in here?
Do it.
Because I felt like the biggest miss on this movie is Jesse. Like Jesse is barely in the movie at all.
Yeah.
Right.
And like, whereas Walt is the Luke Skywalker of this story, Jesse's the R2D2. Like, you need just Jesse to be there because he is the kind of through story. I mean, for me, the whole climax of this entire series is that moment when Jesse is in the El Camino escaping the white supremacist camp.
Right.
And when he's like got that laughing, crying thing going on, like that was the moment in the series of like Jesse's freedom from Walt as the triumphant moment of the series. And while they include it in the movie, Jesse's not, the buildup isn't there. You don't get that nuance of what Walt did to Jesse.
Right.
They include Gail's murder. But they don't include all of the other stuff that pushed Jesse over the edge. They don't include, like I said, the poisoning of the child. They don't include Jesse's meth binge that he goes on.
Jane.
They don't include Jane. They don't include the kid getting shot out at the train heist.
Right.
Like all of the things that kept on driving Jesse to insanity, it just isn't there. And I feel like that's a huge miss. And that's what I think is like, yes, this series did a great job of showing kind of Walt's family dynamic. We've talked about the way that Hank was highlighted. We talked about the way Skyler was highlighted. And that family dynamic is cool. But the interesting thing about this series, I think the most interesting thing about this series is that relationship between Walt and Jesse. And it just was not there. So if I were to recut this, the thing I would just basically shift the entire thing. I mean, I might start the movie with the scene where Jesse recruits, or where Walt recruits Jesse.
Right.
Start it there, and then build it out from there. And you could still do all this stuff with Gus. You could still do, everything else. But without that relationship, it seems a little empty.
I will say that, go and put my praise hat back on, I thought the way they did structure it, where they almost made Jesse reluctantly pulling the gun and shooting Gale mirror him pulling the gun on Walt and refusing to shoot him. And
Yep.
I like, you know, of course, this is me being a massive Breaking Bad fan, filling in the beats here, but it felt to me like a very mirror image. Like,
Yeah,
he
it absolutely
acted
was.
out of love for Walt, and he didn't act out of residual love and respect for Walt. And I felt like that. Like, I never saw those sequences that way, but they're, you know, him shooting Gale in the face is the midpoint of the series. And it revolves in the way that, like, you know, the way they shot that is very, very similar too. And, you know, Arya from God damn, I can't remember the site. I know you will, Shane. Breaking Bad minutia or Breaking Bad observations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mario Matati.
there, yeah,
he worked for Cereable.
that's right. Cereable is on
Yeah.
Cereable.
Yep.
And he was very good at spotting those those you know, reuse shots blocking and stuff. And I just
Yep.
like, I thought it was a lot easier to see things like that. And I almost think that like that was something that Vince intended, and I totally missed. And then I got it when I saw this movie. But I agree. Jesse being gone is bizarre, and the amount like I think one of the biggest flaws is, honestly, it felt like it was going somewhere when they opened with Walt and Skylar Young buying the house. But they didn't. I just felt like that seemed like so much wasted time in the pillow talk scene. Those things seemed like, when I was in the back half of the thing and Jesse was nobody fun, I'm like, God, there's 10 minutes that you could desperately needed it to give to Jesse and really sell this like demented father-son relationship.
Well, what if you started with Walt in the classroom, right? He gives the transformation speech, then you cut to cancer diagnosis, and then you cut to what Eric was talking about with Jesse and Walt kicking it off.
Yep.
Right? You can do that very tight set of sequences, and you don't need the flashback.
No,
you know,
the flashback was useless the way. And also, Gretchen Elliott, get the fuck out of this project. We don't have to. As awesome as that extended scene of him threatening with the hidden assassins, which plays a lot more ominously in the movie than it does in the show.
It does, yeah, because they leave out the whole thing that the assassins are just dude with laser pointers.
Yeah, it's Skinny Pete and Badger. But like, get them the fuck out of. There's another 5 minutes you reclaim that has. I honestly can't figure out why they included the Gretchen and Elliot stuff. Maybe it's because their favorite moment is the laser pointer scene. I
think they're doing this family arc thing, and that was how Walt made it right for his family. And I think that's probably why they left it in. But the issue with that, because it does resolve that, it resolves how, you know, yes, we could feel bad for Skylar and Walt Jr., but in 3 months, they're going to get $18 million or whatever it is. Right. So it resolves that. But the problem is, you're right. This is more fat on the bone, because now we have to go back and show all the intro stuff with those two.
Right.
You know, the pool party and everything at the beginning in order to have that make sense. So that's more fat on the bone.
Yeah, and I just don't, because and even as good as big a part of, here's just the other thing. I don't know if you're trying to adapt Breaking Bad in the movie, a successful adaptation understands real change has to happen to make it work. And I felt like that the filmmakers really refused to actually change any beats. Like, they wanted them all there and mostly the right sequence, but there was a lot of missed opportunities too. Like again, it was awesome to see Gus there and the whole Gale situation, but it was really a distraction from the story they were wanting to tell. And I felt like they could have cut it around where Walt was just this amateur chemist that grew this operation from a street level operation to this big super lab operation, and leave Gus and all that and Mike and all that stuff out of it, and just show like his rise and fall and his betrayal of Jesse, and then his involvement of the Hank getting brought into the end of it. But they just like refused to like make big structural changes and change the cause and effect of things. I don't know.
Hey, can I jump in here real quick?
Please.
I'm gonna roll through a laundry list of what I think, to me, of what the big things that are missing from this, right?
Okay.
So there's no Combo and Skinny Pete. There's no Jane. There's no Salamancas, Tuco, Hector, nobody, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's no Cartel. There's no Flight 515. There's no Fly, no 4 Days Out, no 1 Minute, no Face Off. There's no Lydia. There's no Todd. There's no Uncle Jack until very late, and they aren't even really there.
Mm-hmm.
There's no Granite State. Basically, everything that they could possibly cut out secondary wise, I think is smart in the sense that they're trying to lock down and focus on Walt. But how Walt interacts with Saul, Mike, Jesse, all these characters is what makes Walt. And so,
Right.
you know,
That's what I'm saying.
the other sort of big huge gaping hole in this movie, there's not a single fucking ounce of humor.
Yeah.
And Breaking Bad could be really fucking funny.
Yeah.
It was a really funny show. And so you don't get any Jesse spilling out of a porta-john, right?
Right.
Or any of the goofy Combo, Skinny Pete, Jesse conversations. You don't even get the kicking fight in the bathroom between Walt and Jesse. You know, all those sort of infantile child fights that they had.
Mm-hmm.
No, there's no humor. And man, this movie ached for a little of that Breaking Bad dark humor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
I completely agree with that. That is a great point. You know, Vince is a big, he loves funny stuff. You know, I one of my favorite cameos of all time is him on Community as the VCR video or VCR board game cowboy.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's just great stuff. That's a huge part of this series. You're right, is the comedic elements. And that's like really, really probably the thing that I didn't realize was missing when I watched this, because it is dark.
But
dude.
you know
it's
what?
Super dark.
It's not. The problem with that, the Breaking Bad humor, is there's so much setup to it.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, my favorite author, Patrick O'Brien, will spend 50 pages to set up a dick joke that comes flying out of nowhere in his 18th century sailing book, or you know, this Age of Sail thing. And I think Vince Gilligan does the same thing, like 2 or 3 episodes worth of setup to, you know, have like a bathtub full of human goo fall through a floor, and that's like very darkly comic. Or, you know, like you know, Badger giving Jesse the helicopter bitch treatment. Or, you know, like if you just showed that as a scene, it would be almost slapstick. The thing that was funny was Jesse had flipped and it turned into the Walton situation, and Badger was the Jesse, and they spent an episode or 2 building up that dynamic where Jesse's like, well, fuck it, I'm going to be Walt, and this guy will be Jesse, and suddenly all the things that, you know, he used to do to drive Walt crazy were the things Badger was doing, and Badger was acting out, and it's like, how do you do that when you got 2 hours to work with total?
No, I get it. I mean, I'm just saying that to me was a huge part of Breaking Bad, and that's not here, right? And that's why Saul is reduced to maybe like 45 seconds total.
Right. And I argue he probably shouldn't even been even that involved.
Fair enough. I mean, I don't know how much you really need it, but that, you know, the humor hole was significant for me. The other thing that is desperately missing from this movie is one of the most cinematic aspects of Breaking Bad. The cinematography is just not present.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the most beautiful POVs, the landscapes, all of that, it ended up feeling a much more claustrophobic version of the show, and you never got the sense of place and the expanse.
The big skies,
Yeah, the cleverness of all the things that Michael Slovis brought to this show.
Yeah.
I really feel like they cut that heart out too. And being a designer, my trade and my stock in trade, I will watch shows that absolutely suck, even if the cinematography is great. And I mean, it can be everything to me when I watch a show. And this show, it sucked me in the beginning because of its cinematography. And that it isn't present here, makes me actually question these guys as directors. I mean, they should know this.
No, and
Yeah,
I'm surprised that
zero GoPros.
I was
Yeah,
surprised that yes, all of the stunt, none of the stunt, and like I was sure that they were going to use at least the transitions, you know, the sped up time, gorgeous vistas of New Mexico or
right.
Albuquerque in particular. Like those are tailor made to like transition from season to season and from scene to scene and from theme to theme. And you just hard cut everything together. Like that felt like a way they could have easily got some of that stuff without adding more than 30, 40 seconds to the runtime. And I was just
Right.
incredulous that they didn't do any of that stuff. And more to your point about these guys being directors, I was just kind of shocked that. I mean, I don't know how much time they spent on this stuff,
2
but
years.
I was
2 years, dude.
amazed that they decided to release it in this state because it felt like an unfinished work. It felt like a little bit more restructuring, a little more refactoring, a little bit more willing to fudge the rules of the Breaking Bad universe, and they would have had something special, which, unless you guys want to talk about some more misses, I want to transition this into the conversation of how you can do something like this right.
Okay,
Can I
have
just
one-
throw in a couple more
Yes,
misses?
please.
Yeah, go ahead.
Biggest thing that I didn't like is that if you're gonna have Gus Fring, and I know why they didn't do it because they didn't have Tuco and they didn't have that whole storyline.
Yeah.
So they could, if they showed the old guy in the old folks home, it would be weird. But to not have the explosion at the old folks home and not
right.
have that scene where Gus walks out and his face falls off, like that is a huge moment in Breaking Bad. And the way that they covered it up actually made that seem a lot weirder.
It was just like,
'Cause-
what is Gus doing in a nursing home that he would get
Right.
exploded? Like that's so.
Well,
What's this drug lord doing visiting this old folks home?
well, not to mention the way that they reveal it in lieu of having that explosion scene is that they show a very odd scene. It didn't play odd at the time when I watched it. Is Hank and like all of his friends and family sitting around the TV watching the
it,
news
yeah.
report?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is like, why the hell would they be doing that? Like,
Uh-huh.
were
Yeah.
they having like a barbecue and then they're like, oh, let's watch the news
Right.
together? I mean, it was a really, really weird reveal. So that was the biggest miss for me. I mean, aside from the Jesse stuff, I was like, if you're going to have Gus in here, you got to have Gus blowing up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I
I so
agree.
totally agree.
They
You know,
just
it's interesting. The Vanity Fair article talks about their effort, you know, when they were doing this, and they kind of made it like a gentleman's challenge between each other. And they edited the first season in a week, and they were like, "Hell yeah, we're gonna knock this thing out." And then they spent 2 years,
Yeah.
2 years, dude, trying to make this into an intelligible movie. And they said they ultimately cut 12 different versions of this movie. And with this much material, you really could cut it so many different ways.
Oh yeah.
But let's segue into what we think are successful versions of this, because I know we all have versions in our head.
Well, I got multiple pitches, and I want to start off with one that seems like the most obvious one.
Okay, go.
Scrap the single movie, make it a pentology. It's a movie with four sequels. You have 5 Breaking Bad movies, roughly
Yes.
corresponding to these, and I think you could actually make a really
6.
fucking compelling movie series out of that. I think that would actually be really successful. You would still get rid of a lot of stuff. It'd be get rid of stuff that I kind of drives me nuts in the first place. Like, for example, keep Jane, get rid of her father, get rid of the plane crash. But I
You
think,
always hated the plane
dude,
crash.
I still think it still sticks in my mind and my craw as the biggest misstep in Breaking Bad history. But what do you guys? I mean, that just seems like a no brainer. Like that would be such an easier project. It's still challenging, because then you're tempted to like put like and I don't want like any of these Peter Jackson 3.5-hour movie extended releases. Like each movie, like, but season 1 seems like it's especially easy to cut down to a 2-hour movie. And, you know, season 2 would be a little bit more challenging, but make it focused more like this, you know, dispense with Tuco and make it more about Gus, get rid of the transition street level kind of stuff that him and Jesse was trying to run. Get rid of Peekaboo, as painful as that is, but just kind of tell the bare bones story of them meeting up with Gus, and it's kind of like a transition thing. Tell the story of Jesse and Jane. I don't want to go through all of the 5 seasons, but I feel like a five movie set would be much more successful. That's one of my concepts. What do you think, Shayne? What's your next? Or you guys can talk about that, whatever.
No, that's exactly one of mine, which is, condensing 13 hours to an hour and a half is enormously challenging in its own right. But most people that followed the sort of Vince Gilligan, Matthew Weiner, that kind of era of golden age of TV, and followed it into the peak TV world. This is looking at Sopranos and The Wire and all these shows. They really did 1-season arcs, right? And you might have to cut Breaking Bad with a couple of episodes from 2 into 1.
Yep.
But absolutely, this could be a stunning series of movies, right? And you could lose some secondary characters, but you won't lose Saul. You won't lose Mike. You won't lose those critical nuances that you need. And yes, I think you could home run that all day long. You got any thoughts about that, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, I think I might want to see it as a trilogy.
Trilogy
like
would be a good challenge. I think that's like expert mode.
Yeah, I think putting it down to 6 hours, I think you could actually do that, because I think that episode 1 would be them, getting up and running, and then really flesh out that relationship between Walt and Jesse and set that up. And then season 2 or episode 2 would basically be the Gus Fring arc.
The Super Lab, yep, sure.
Yep. And then episode 3 would be the white supremacist arc, basically. Biker gang arc. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, you're going from, if you take seasons 1 and 2, right? And you're saying that's the ascendance of Heisenberg.
Yeah.
And then the second movie is The Challenge, right? With Gus. And the third movie is The Capture, right? I mean, it's more or less what they did with the Escobar series, except they did that in 2 parts.
Yeah.
Right? He said his ascendance and then his capture.
Right.
Yeah. I agree.
Go ahead.
So, I mean, I like to go a little bit more out of the box. So I'd like to hear some other ideas before I jump in with mine.
Okay. You have a pitch, Shayne, because I got another. I got
Sure.
like 4 of them.
Yeah, mine was cut all the fat and just do the Gus Fring arc.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, you could make an insanely good movie with just the Gus Fring arc alone. If you need to, you can pull from season 1 and 2, like as a flashback.
Walt gets cancer, right? And but then he somehow gets a connection to Gus right away. You skip all the Tuco, skip all the street level crap, and you get the straightforward offer: cook for me 3 months for however many million of dollars, and then Walt's paranoia, and the end of the movie is Walt saying "I won," right?
Yes,
Roll
that's right.
credits.
You get Ding Boom, you get I won, and you don't have to see him fall apart. You get to basically see Mr. Chips battle Scarface.
Yeah.
And that's what it is Mr. Chips versus Scarface. Not a transformation movie, just a movie about a guy who thought he was going to die and decided to cook meth, and he goes up against one of the biggest meth dealers and wins. And you end it right there. That's a killer way to make a Breaking Bad movie.
And so you cut the cartel out, right?
Yep.
You keep because the way I see it is Gale is like the midpoint. Gale getting blasted is where things turn, and that's like the client. That's like the crisis in the middle of the movie that everything spirals into what launches, I guess, the third act. What else do you get to lose? I mean, do you keep? I feel like you get rid of the cousins. You get rid of Hank. You get the Jesse being
Hank,
used as a
Hank
pawn.
is actually a fairly important part of that story, because he like finds the laundry and everything.
Yeah, but that's. Ooh, I guess you're right. But
Yeah,
ultimately he gets.
and there's a scene with
Ultimately,
Gus
nothing comes
when he
of that
goes to the
though.
police station, you
Yeah.
know, and he
Yeah.
sees Walt's donation jug at the police station. So I feel like Hank would have to be in there.
But
a
that's
little
the
bit.
thing, like, because I guess I'm
But he's not a
advocating.
major character.
Yeah, I'm advocating for breaking the rules of Breaking Bad and make it to where, you know, Gus just knows about Walt's cancer from the jump. Like, you just get that implication. It wouldn't be that he discovers it via this other means.
Right.
So you just have to. I know it's a brutal cut, but I feel like you got to get rid of it. As good as the cousins are, and as good as the standoff, and as good as Hank's recovery is. I just don't think there's room for it
You don't need it.
This is an action movie.
Absolutely. This is high school teacher versus meth god, and you get to bring in the baddest ass character in all of Breaking Bad, Mike Ehrmantraut.
Yep.
He gets center stage to be with the bad guy, and you can bring Saul into this story very effectively. Jesse could be an interesting character and have plenty of prominence to the story.
And the story would be his
Skyler
innocence kind of lost, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, to me, that is the killer. Boil it down to the greatest thing you've ever seen.
And I just
the
think
cool thing about that is that you can, with the footage and with the stories that have been told in Better Call Saul, you can actually do more backstory stuff with Gus as well.
Sure, absolutely.
And I just think that ending with the I-1 phone call with maybe a reaction shot from Skyler where she's horrified, that's such a Godfather Chapter 1 move.
Yes.
Where she's just realizing, what her family's safety means and how it's bought and what part she plays in it. And it's just got that, like, gothic feel to it. I think would just be fucking rad.
Still have to have that weird scene in there, though, where the whole family's watching the news report. Everybody gather around. There's breaking news.
Okay, here's my other pitch. If you want to try one of your weirdo pitches, you can, Eric, but I got another more conventional pitch.
Okay, well, I mean, one of my pitch ideas is that you cut out most of the Breaking Bad stuff. So you cut out most of the meth.
Okay.
And you turn this into a story about Skyler slowly realizing that her husband is a meth kingpin.
Yeah, I love this idea.
And so you actually take out almost all of Breaking Bad.
So it's like The Shining. She is Shelley Duvall and Walt is Jack Nicholson.
Oh my God, it's perfect, dude. Like, yeah,
it's almost a horror film. Yeah.
Yeah, it's absolutely a horror film, and so that knife fight could be like a huge climax for the movie. I don't know, and I'm sure you could use enough footage to have to make it look like Walt came back and maybe shining his family, but
right. Yeah,
it could be. I feel like that could be a really interesting dynamic because then you don't have all the baggage of, oh, we got to put Gus in there, we got to put Saul in there, we got to put Jesse in there, we got to put all those people in there, like. If it's small things, if it's a story about Skyler realizing her husband is a monster, I think that's kind of an interesting story.
Mm-hmm.
The plastic surgery throughout, we might throw that off from a continuity standpoint. Just saying, like, the Botox got a little strong toward the end of the series, which I understand is a thing that has to happen in Hollywood because of the misogyny of Hollywood. But I'm just saying. It might throw off the continuity a little bit.
Way to reinforce by calling it out there,
Eric. Sorry.
Yeah, that's a strike. It almost turns into like I said, a shining horror film. I like that. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Do you have another one, Shayne? Because I've got one more idea.
Well, my other kind of silly and very much in the same vein, and I don't know if there's enough material there, though. It's just Jesse, Skinny Pete, Badger moments, and I don't know how you thread that together for a kind of like meth version of Cheech and Chong.
Yeah, yeah.
But I would love that. I just don't know that there's enough there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can almost like cut it into like a Pineapple Express farce, right?
Exactly.
Like there's all
That's
these big
exactly.
events going on in the background, but they're just dimly aware of. And you'd have to cut, obviously you couldn't. You'd have to end it well before the neo-Nazis show up and make him into their
Right.
meth slave. But
Right.
so my other pitch is strip this down and make it about the brothers-in-law, Walt and Hank.
Yeah.
To the extent that I was even thinking, like get rid of Gus, make it seem like the Walt is the super lab is all him, and bring all of Hank's pathos. And I was thinking the way you could do that is have Hank be prematurely on Walt's trail with unknowingly by making that, wanting to investigate the laundry, have Walt wreck into traffic and then kick off Hank's recovery arc. As if that as he wasn't shot up, and it was all because of his brother. Which because I had this idea when they were having this climactic scene, and Hank screaming in his face, "You drove us into traffic to keep me at like that's such a betrayal." And I'm like, man, if you actually stretch that out and make his whole recovery because his brother-in-law drove him into traffic to throw him off of his trail. Like that's a pretty interesting and go into the webisode where like bring in as a flashback or maybe start the movie with that relationship where you show that they're buddies. I don't know if you've seen this one, Eric, but there's this webisode where
I've seen the webisode
where
they're hilarious.
Walt's walking him through a confession that he had with a woman who was more than she seemed in Tijuana or whatever, Juarez, and he's having cold feet getting married to, but really sell that relationship, get rid of all the stuff where Hank was belittling Walt, and maybe even keep the pillow talk scene where it seems like he's very he really cares about his brother, and have it and also have the Hank is the unwitting genesis of his criminal career because he gives him the idea to cook meth, keep all that stuff. But then just just make it tightly about the investigation, the French Connection aspect of this, where you've got the investigator dueling with the criminal, and I think that would be a really sweet way to keep a lot of the good Hank stuff and a lot of the good Walt stuff, and even a lot of the good, because you'd also have Jesse would be caught in this proxy war because several times Hank had him in the box, sweating him, right?
Yeah.
Not knowing that he was, and even Gale, you could keep Gale but get rid of Gus and have him be the other proxy. And then Hank just keeps working his way, thinks he's got Heisenberg, and then when he finally gets it, just this horror and shock. And I think that would be.
So how does it end?
Well,
it's got to end at Tahajali.
There's so I thought about this.
It doesn't actually.
The good guy win is Hank slaps him in bracelets, and that's that you roll credits. The bad ending, and I'm not sure how you work the neo-Nazis in, but the bad ending is the neo-Nazis come and do it, and then that's and then that's what I'm saying. I don't. My idea was just to break the Breaking Bad chronology and just have it end with Hank triumphant.
You might be able to actually.
You could end it on the toilet. You could end it at confessions. You could end it at Tahajali, like you said, pre Todd and Uncle Jack showing up. There's 4 or 5 different ways you could end that movie, and they would each kind of bring a slightly different tone to it. Because one could be Walt v. Hank, and Walt wins.
Yep.
Then you have Walt v. Hank, Hank wins.
Yep.
Yeah, and if you ended on the toilet, Walt v. Hank ?
Right.
Correct.
Right.
Which could be that could be
Great.
that could be really interesting. You could also, like I said, do it from the family perspective. Maybe do it from Hank's perspective, where it's a mystery of who is Heisenberg, and then that toilet scene could totally be the climax, where he discovers who Heisenberg actually is.
Yeah, I just realized that from all the stuff they left on the cutting room floor is how easy it would be to sell this whole story as Walt is the criminal mastermind from the jump. Because you got all those badass stay out of my territory and all this this bravado and say my name, where it seems like he's the big player, even though part of all those scenes are the audience's understanding that Walt is still in over his head. If you just remove that awareness, he seems much more titanic in his stature.
Yeah.
That he never
Okay.
really achieves until the height of season 5A, right? So,
Yes.
but hey, I thought that would be fun.
Yeah.
Shane, you got
Yeah,
another one?
Do you guys remember when Twin Peaks came out initially, and they were showing the 7-episode first season in the United States, but in Europe there was a 2-hour version of that story that played in movie theaters, and then many years later, they when they released the box set, they released the movie and that showed in Europe, and then they released the 7 episodes, and that's a fascinating experiment where you could tell that David Lynch had conceived the movie version of the 7 episodes and then the TV show version and how it would continue. It's that's a really that's one of the more positive versions of this, but it's the same storyteller just thinking of alternate ways to tell it. I'd love to hear what Vince thinks
Yeah.
Breaking Bad the movie should be.
Totally. Yeah, or Peter Gould.
I'm almost
Yeah,
positive
absolutely.
that Breaking Bad will be turned into a movie in my lifetime.
Yeah.
I don't know what
Yeah,
kind of
somebody buys
project.
the rights.
I don't know what kind of project it would be. Like, it would be like, now that I've heard Eric's pitch, or no, not Eric's pitch, your pitch, Shane. Like, I kind of want to see a Pineapple Express version of Breaking Bad. like the way that like they've done Starsky and Hutch, and now they're doing Chips. Like, take something that's serious and give it the goofy take of it, or a 21 Jump Street.
21 Jump Street.
Because I think, that would be the least offensive way to do it, because you're not even trying to respect the artist. You're just making something your own kind of thing. But like, I feel like there's a couple things, like, I'm mortally certain that they'll reboot Harry Potter in my lifetime with all new kid actors for another kid generation. I'm mortally certain that they'll have a Star Wars out every year until I fucking die, and I'm pretty damn sure that they'll adapt Breaking Bad into a movie series eventually.
Well, they're doing The Matrix again, so.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever see the Israeli version of Breaking Bad?
No. I've seen a lot. I haven't seen it all, but I've seen a lot of Metastasis though.
I saw all of Metastasis, and but what was this Israeli version of Breaking Bad? I may be applying the wrong ethnicity to this, but I'm pretty sure it was from there.
You're gonna start a war on this podcast, Shane? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, it was a Palestinian version. I'm sorry. No, it was. They took the sort of core, boiled down Heisenberg arc and put it in a 3-episode series, part of a series. So there was 15 episodes of this show, but there was a little 3-episode guy breaking bad, selling meth, kind of story, and got caught. And it was interesting, mainly from the concept of distillation. And it was the only place where I had seen where somebody really took an attempt to create a Heisenberg arc within a series of a given season of a show. That was kind of interesting too.
Interesting. Yeah. So one thing that I want to throw out there is, and Shane, you kind of hinted at this. I would love to also see a Mike Ehrmantraub, or Ehrmantraub, or the Man Trout, whatever you want to call him, version, because he is the most compelling. Like, that was one of the things that I really was sad that they left out, is that scene where he goes into the warehouse and just murders everybody.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's like an amazing scene. And, I don't know if there's enough there for a whole story. There probably is now with Better Call Saul. But I do want to bring that up. I kind of missed it when we talked about the things that were left out, or that didn't work. But that scene with Saul at Saul's, strip mall law firm, where Mike is sitting out in the lobby and Walt is trying to convince him to go into business with Mike. And the way that Saul addresses Mike in that scene makes me feel like Saul and Mike don't really know each other, which is like totally not true. Right. And it kind of made Better Call Saul fall apart for me a little bit. And it kind of changed my view of Better Call Saul a little bit. It made Better Call Saul seem more like a prequel adjacent to as opposed to a direct prequel to Breaking Bad. So I wanted to just get your thoughts on that really quickly.
I did like the scene in the bar that they captured a movie where there's a Better Call Saul commercial and Jonathan Banks did the salute to it.
Yeah,
I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say about that because I'm not sure. So what scene are you talking about?
There's a scene where he goes like he said he would break my legs, and then Walt says, well, he said he would kill me, and now he's working with me, and it's just like the way that Saul, the way that scene was directed.
Oh, that he doesn't know the real Mike.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a way that like either they had a huge falling out at the end of Better Call Saul, which they very well
could, right?
Or what is more probable is that the person who directed that episode didn't know that there was going to be an entire prequel series called Better Call Saul, and that maybe Saul should act a little bit like he has a more intimate relationship with Mike.
I have a way to address this.
I do too. Yeah.
I will never, and I don't think anybody should ever underestimate Vince Gilligan and team and their ability to reverse engineer anything.
True.
They will make it by the end of this thing fit together like just smooth butter. I'm telling you, it will go together like it's always been together. And it won't feel stilted at all. But I know exactly what you're talking about. And what if Mike and Saul are trying to play these guys?
Oh, could be a little R2D2 Chewbacca situation.
Yeah, I mean,
I also think that the possibility there is that Saul doesn't really understand Mike's full capabilities. Saul thinks Mike is this guy who can go in and steal a bag of money, or this guy who can put in a bug to catch a man cheating on his wife, or a guy. He doesn't understand the wet works capability of this guy. Like even that in Better Call Saul is pretty siloed up, right? Like Saul, Saul's not a part of any of that stuff. So he might see it as genuinely shocking that this guy's coming with his dead mackerel eyes and threatening to break his legs. Like I didn't, well, you're my black bag guy. What the hell are you talking about breaking my legs for?
Yeah, I mean, and Shane, you're totally right. That's one of my biggest pet peeves about Better Cast Saul is the amount of shade that Jim and A.Ron throw at Vince Gilligan. They're like, I don't know how he's gonna figure this out. I'm like, I wouldn't worry about it, guys. He's gonna figure it out. It's Vince Gilligan. He's got a track record.
What else we're supposed to do week to week, but to
I'm
express our
I do how these two French guys. I do love how they ended this movie. The very last frame was, if you expect to watch Better Call Saul the movie, don't count on us. They learned their lesson in this project. And I don't know if you guys read the article that Alan Sepinwall wrote this week about this movie. Did either of you read this?
I haven't.
Nope.
No.
So he basically makes a lot of the same points that we make, which is a TV show is a TV show. It has episodes. It is a serialized thing, right? And it is one way of storytelling. A movie is an entirely different thing. And he, like a lot of critics, have been dogging all the showrunners who go, like the Game of Thrones guys go, yeah, we're making a 62-hour movie. Well, no, you're not. You're making a serialized TV show. Mm-hmm. And you can say all you want that we're making a more cinematic TV show and that we're trying to make it more like a movie, but that's total horseshit. It is still delivered episodically, serialized, and the way you tell a story in that universe is very different than the 2-hour movie method.
Yeah.
So this is a great, fun discussion exercise. And I think, frankly, all of our ideas are superior to what was attempted here, because the minute you narrow the scope, you exponentially increase the likelihood of success.
Yep.
And that's what they really needed to do.
But I just feel like they wanted to try to get as many beats as they could, which is, like you said, it's a fool's errand. So you know.
Right.
And I do think even going for what they were trying to go, like, I'm tempted to take their cut and take that as a starting point, take about 15 minutes out of it, put another about 30 back into it, and go with a slightly I feel like I could, I mean, this is like the height of hubris, but I feel like I could do a better job. Like, I don't know, but because I think their bones are not bad. They just needed to take some of the like stuff that they really like, you know, whatever madness led them to, you know, keep the Gretchen and Elliott stuff, like get rid of that and keep cutting the extraneous stuff out and let some of the good stuff they have breathe. Or, like I said, I don't have the time to do it, but it'd be very interesting to do like the Hank version or the one I really want to do is the Gus story.
Yeah.
Because I think you're right. You can make a tight 2-hour film out of that would be gripping from start to finish.
I think it's a testament to Vince and the team, though.
Yes.
That you have the confidence that you can do that. I think that you're dealing with such amazing parts here that, you know, the scenes themselves are so good, the acting is so good, the writing is so good, the thread is so tight on this show that this show even has the opportunity for this to happen. Like, nobody's going to be doing this with The Walking Dead, hopefully.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not trying to crap on The Walking Dead, but I'm just saying.
Fun fact.
And Breaking Bad they got it going on, and they are the ones who have actually catalyzed the possibility of even doing this.
Fun fact: 3 years ago, Jim and I had this idea called Pop Culture College, where we were going to make 10 to 15 minute synopses of big television shows for people that. Like, hey, you want to get on in season 5 of Breaking Bad? Yes, of course, this is sacrilege and this is hearsay. But here is you can watch the first season in 10 minutes and the second season in 15. And we actually started on Walking Dead because we thought it'd be the easiest. And I think we came up with really solid 15-minute cuts of the first, second, and third season of Walking Dead.
Were they actual video or was
we did video and we had we filled in gaps in narration. So like it was fast-paced narration and very fast cuts, and also we threw some humor in there too, tried to capture some bald move humor. But I think that like if you watched those 45 minutes, that you could have gone into season 4 of Walking Dead and not missed a beat. Obviously harder to do with Breaking Bad and all that stuff, but
that's a synopsis, though. This is a movie that somebody intends somebody to sit down and watch and be compelled by. I think it's not a synopsis. It's an attempt at something cinematic.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know if you've noticed this, but what you're describing, a lot of reality shows are starting to do exactly what you just described. And what they do is the day before the show comes on, they have like a half hour, an hour, however many seasons they need to catch you up on, and it's just, how did we get to here? Right? A lot of shows are doing this, and you know, I think that's a great way to kind of get somebody back in. But to Eric's point, this is a totally different exercise.
Yep.
I have a question for you guys.
Go for it.
So let's assume there are two foolish German directors that are listening to this podcast. What show would you recommend two young foolish German directors take an attempt at doing something like this on?
Well, I think that my personal favorite season of television, I've already said Breaking Bad's my favorite show ever made.
Yes.
But season 1 of True Detective turned into a 2-hour movie could be really interesting.
Oh,
yeah, that's a good. God damn it, that's a good one.
Because that is the show that I go back and watch every year. I watched the first season of True Detective. Well, you know, it hasn't been out for so many years, but I make a cadence pilgrimage to that series and rewatch the whole thing because it's so well done. And I think that the thing that's really great with that is that Cary Fukunaga directed all of them. So they have the same director. Throughout.
Yep.
So I think that's that would be a really cool exercise.
Damn, that's a really good one. Because I was like, man, I'm trying to think of what I would movify. Do you have an idea, Shane, to give me a little time to think here?
Well, I can tell you what's been going through my head. One, like the biggest fool's errand of all would be to try and figure out how to tell Lost. And
You just stop at season 3. You ended at season 3. That's it. That's the movie.
well, okay, but still, that would be a very long movie. Those were
Yeah, I
long
know.
network seasons, man.
Yeah, you're right.
But I bet you there's actually a couple of decent movies within Lost, kind of the way we are thinking about, cherry picking, a chunk of the story and condensing that into a movie. I think there's a couple of characters that you could isolate on in Lost and do something interesting with. The other thing that I was thinking about was Banshee. It's something that
Damn it,
or the Nick, something like those shows.
Yeah.
I bet you could cut the Nick into a fantastic 2-hour movie.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
that's a good one too. And I was thinking I was thinking like, oh, because I was trying to think of the action sequences that are already there and which ones would make the best. That's a good one. I kind of, man, this is I feel okay because this is something Jim and I have actually talked about a lot.
Okay.
I think I don't know about an actual movie, but a series like I've often wanted to go and recut The Walking Dead. Because I do think if you strip away all of the really excessive fat and some of the really bizarre like all the beats are there, they're just buried under layers and layers of bullshit and delay and distraction and false peril. And but if you I like for every 16-hour season, I think there's like only 3 hours that are worth a damn in them. And if you strung those together, you could make a really compelling miniseries.
Yeah.
That
But how do
would
you
adhere
resolve
to
it?
Well, that's the problem. What they haven't yet, and I'm starting to become convinced that they're not going to. Like this show's going to be canceled before they get around to wrapping it up in any kind of satisfying way. But, yeah, I don't know. It's not finished, right?
Yeah.
That's the problem.
It's also really challenging because they've had so many different showrunners on that show
Yes.
that it's got that disjointed feel to it.
Yeah, but I think you could smooth over the hardest transition is season 1 because it just feels completely different from anything else. But I'm trying to think what else.
Well, I actually think that this is a little plug for another podcast on the Bald Move Network, but I think that *Halt and Catch Fire*. I know, A.Ron, you don't watch this show,
Ooh, I love that show.
I love it, man. I think it's one of the best shows on television. I really
Hell
enjoy
yes.
it. And I feel like, there's still one more season left, but it's a nice tidy 4-season show. And I think that you could figure out a way to do like a Steve Jobs-esque kind of version of it, focusing on a single character and then seeing how that character interacts with the other. Because that's the nice thing about *Halt and Catch Fire* is there's really 4 characters, and the whole show is just scenes with them hanging out with each other. It's like
So who
these
would
two
you
characters.
pick? Would
and
you
these two
pick
characters.
Joe or would you pick Cameron?
Well, my favorite is Gordon, but Gordon gets really boring.
Yeah. He
For a
could
long
hold
time.
the movie.
I mean, Joe is the obvious choice, but I really think Cameron could be really interesting. The rise of mutiny, and then seeing especially where she goes now in season 4. I think that's because Joe gets kind of boring in season 3 too. I think Cameron's probably the most exciting character. So maybe *Halt and Catch Fire*. Sorry to leave you out there, Aaron.
No, but I think you could. You know what would be really great is you get one of these German directors to cut Joe's movie and another one to cut Cameron's movie because there is enough across these seasons to have insanely good Joe story with everybody else kind of being secondary, and then another one that does Cameron. Oh man, that show just came out on Netflix. I cannot wait to watch season 3 again. That was just so fantastic.
Yeah, I can't wait for season 4. And yeah, A.Ron, you need to watch the show. That's another plug for it.
I gotta have one because Jim's always doing this to me, poo pooing the shit that I love. I gotta have one show that he watches and says it's awesome. I gotta be like meh. It's the way the way we maintain equality.
Keeps balancing the force.
It does. So I think that felt like a pretty good podcast. Let's
yeah.
Would you gentlemen like to give any plugs for stuff? I know you're recently retired. You're coming out of your 1 week retirement to do another Bald Move podcast here, Eric. But if you like to plug the stuff you're doing, or
well, yeah, I mean,
got
I
a board
really
game you're kickstarting soon, or
yeah, I am kind of on hiatus right now from podcasting. I've been doing it for a long time, and I don't do it for a living, so that means I can do things like take a hiatus. But there is, I guess I'll tease, there might be a final Swan Song Nolan run of Direct.
Ooh.
And that's looking like more and more of a possibility of a Nolan run running up to Dunkirk. So that would be
nice.
Dropping in May, I believe. And yeah, so that's a definite possibility. And then hopefully I can rope Jim into doing Mutiny Community for season 4 of Halt and Catch Fire, because
I think he's
I'm going to be watching it, so I might as well.
Would you guys want to do a joint Bald Move Personal Arrogance Dunkirk?
Yeah. I mean, we were going to let you guys do the first. I think we were planning it. We'd let you guys do the first run, and then we would release it like the week after.
Yeah. Oh,
but
yeah,
we can always join it.
Yeah. No, I think. That'd be good. Yeah. Okay. Because maybe we could. I don't want to overcover it, but. Like we both have our take and we come. Yeah, probably not, and come do a synthesis of it.
Absolutely right. You can't overcover it.
Yeah. So
well, it's just gonna be a huge stinker.
No, I'm excited. Yeah, the Dunkirk looks amazing.
Yeah.
And I have faith in Nolan. So
lots of maybes for me.
Well, I'll plug my podcast is coming back. Brian and I are bringing Film Schlubs back into business starting next week. We're going to do a couple of episodes that wrap up, what we've thought of some of the shows over the last, 3-4 months, like Taboo and
right.
This Is Us. It's probably the one network show that he and I have both watched. But talk a little bit about The Last Pope and all that stuff that's been out recently. Get our chops going again for the greatest April ever to appear on TV with Better Call Saul, which we'll be covering in depth every week. And also, of course, talking about Leftovers and Fargo and all the other wonderful things that are coming on air. And I blog about Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul every day at HeisenbergChronicles.com. And you can follow me on Twitter at HypergeneSB. That's me.
And I got to get you into more stuff. In fact, we got something in the back burner, you and I.
Yes,
you're part of something. I got a top secret project I'm working on with a couple guys. You're a big part of that. So, cool. Well, I'm glad you guys came on. Had a great time talking about it. I think ultimately the movie's worth watching if you're a Breaking Bad fan. If nothing else, for nostalgia, for seeing some of the you definitely get not exactly the highlights, but a reasonable string of clips that will make you remember some of the great moments of Breaking Bad and the great performances and the story. Like I found myself surprisingly emotional at the scene where they're filming Holly's baby shower and Walt saying these things about, I'm so proud of you and I want these great things for you, and knowing what he ultimately delivers. I thought that was surprisingly poignant. That all being delivered that rapid fire. So there's a lot of good nuggets like that, a lot of head scratchers too, but it's easy for me to sit and criticize from America what they're doing in France.
It's easy to watch, though. I mean, if you're a Breaking Bad fan, it was so easy for me to watch this.
I was so shocked.
It flew by.
Jim was outraged. I asked him his opinion. He made it to he made it to 15 minutes, and he was so disgusted at how they had given the series a Jess-ectomy that he's like, this isn't Breaking Bad, and he shut it off. So
those are the two predominant reactions. What you guys are saying here, which is the nostalgia reaction, and then there's the go fuck yourself reaction.
Right. Right.
I mean, that's it. Those are the two things. I've read hundreds of comments across all the Breaking Bad fan groups, and you either get A or B. There's no in between.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the nature of the beast. Thanks, guys, for joining me. Had a lot of fun, and we'll see you soon somewhere on the internet.